Sup, guys? Wait a minute. You guys aren't the real Avengers. I can tell Hulk gives it away.
Liz get a new top?
No, we've seen that before. Never with that skirt.
Should probably stop staring before he gets.
When Spider-Man: Homecoming swung into theaters in 2017, it marked a thrilling and refreshing new era for one of Marvel's most beloved superheroes. After years of cinematic reboots and interpretations, this version brought the character fully into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, finally giving fans the chance to see Peter Parker interact with heroes like Iron Man and exist in the same world as the Avengers. The film embraced the youthful energy of its hero, combining coming-of-age comedy with fast-paced superhero action while grounding everything in the reality of a high school student trying to balance extraordinary powers with ordinary teenage problems. The story followed Peter Parker, played with infectious charm by Tom Holland, who had already made a brief but memorable debut in Captain America: Civil War. Now he was front and center, eager to prove himself as more than just the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Living with his Aunt May in Queens, Peter struggled with school life, crushes, and friends, while secretly patrolling the streets in his red and blue suit. He admired Tony Stark, who served as a mentor and occasional father figure, but Tony's reluctance to fully trust Peter with larger responsibilities created both tension and motivation for the young hero. Peter's journey wasn't just about defeating villains, it was about earning the right to be called a true superhero. What made Homecoming stand out was how it stripped Spider-Man's story back to its essence. There was no origin retelling, no spider-bite scene, no long mourning over Uncle Ben. Instead, the film assumed audiences already knew the basics, allowing it to focus on Peter's growth as a hero within a larger universe. It balanced humor and heart beautifully, delivering moments of awkward teenage life that felt authentic and relatable. Whether Peter was building Lego sets with his best friend Ned, nervously talking to his crush Liz, or stumbling through his attempts at heroism, everything had a natural, grounded charm. It made him not just a superhero, but a real kid trying to find his place in a world that suddenly seemed so much bigger. At the heart of the story was a clash between two very different men shaped by their environments. On one side was Peter Parker, a teenager with a moral compass and the desire to do good. On the other was Adrian Toomes, also known as the Vulture, played with intensity and depth by Michael Keaton. Toomes wasn't a typical villain bent on world domination. He was a working-class man who felt betrayed by the system. After losing his salvaging business due to government interference, he turned to crime, using stolen alien technology to create advanced weapons and gadgets. His motivations felt understandable, even sympathetic, making the conflict between him and Peter more than just good versus evil. It was about ideals, responsibility, and the consequences of power. The relationship between Peter and Toomes reached its emotional peak in one of the film's most memorable scenes. When Peter arrived to pick up Liz for the homecoming dance, he discovered that her father was none other than Toomes. The tension in that car ride, as Toomes slowly pieced together Peter's secret identity, was electric. It was a masterclass in subtle acting and suspense, showing how personal and grounded a superhero conflict could feel. Their final confrontation wasn't just about saving the city. It was about Peter proving he could stand on his own without relying on Tony Stark's technology or approval. By the end, he learned that true heroism came from within, not from the suit, but from the choices he made. Tom Holland's performance was one of the film's greatest strengths. He perfectly captured Peter Parker's youthful awkwardness, intelligence, and optimism. His version of Spider-Man felt like a real high schooler trying to navigate powers, friendships, and the complexities of being a teenager. The chemistry between Holland and Robert Downey Jr. added emotional depth to the story, creating a believable mentor-student bond that anchored many of the film's key moments. Marissa Tomei brought warmth and humor as Aunt May, and Jacob Batalon's Ned became an instant fan favorite as Peter's loyal and excitable best friend. The film also benefited from its grounded setting. Rather than focusing on world-ending stakes, Homecoming kept things local. Peter saved his classmates, stopped small crimes, and tried to prevent Tomb's illegal arms deals. This smaller-scale storytelling gave the film a refreshing tone, reminding audiences that Spider-Man has always been about protecting the everyday people of New York. Director John Watts blended superhero spectacle with coming-of-age realism, creating a story that was as much about growing up as it was about saving the day. The humor felt sharp and organic, and the action scenes were tightly choreographed without ever losing the sense of fun that defines Spider-Man. Visually, the film offered a bright, vibrant contrast to the darker tones of earlier Spider-Man entries. The high school setting brought color and life to the story, while Spider-Man's new suit, designed by Tony Stark, added a modern technological flair. The film's mix of practical stunts and digital effects made Spider-Man's movements fluid and exhilarating, especially during the Washington Monument sequence and the climactic battle aboard the plane. Each set piece was crafted to show Spider-Man's resourcefulness rather than just his strength, emphasizing his intelligence and adaptability. One of the most endearing elements of Homecoming was how it portrayed Peter's eagerness to prove himself as an Avenger, even when he wasn't quite ready. His constant attempts to impress Tony and his reckless enthusiasm often led to mistakes, but those missteps became essential to his growth. The film's emotional core came from Peter learning that he didn't need to be like Iron Man or any other Avenger. He just needed to be the best version of himself. This message resonated deeply with audiences, especially younger viewers who related to the struggles of growing up and finding one's place in the world. Another standout aspect was the film's humor, which felt natural and well-timed. Whether it was Peter's awkward interactions at school, Ned's excitement about having a superhero best friend, or the recurring comedic bits involving the talking AI in Spider-Man's suit, the film managed to keep a lighthearted tone without undermining its emotional stakes. It was funny, fast-paced, and heartfelt all at once, a combination that made it one of the most accessible and enjoyable entries in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Spider-Man: Homecoming also served as a cultural bridge between the Marvel films that came before it and the next phase of the MCU. By connecting Peter Parker's story with the larger events of the Avengers, it gave fans a sense of continuity and belonging. Tony Stark's presence provided a symbolic passing of the torch, introducing a new generation of heroes who would carry the franchise forward. Yet, at the same time, the film never lost sight of what made Spider-Man special: his humanity, humor, and heart. The supporting cast brought additional depth and humor to the story. Zendaya's portrayal of the observant and sarcastic Michelle, who would later be revealed as MJ, offered a subtle and fresh take on a familiar character. Laura Harrier's Liz added warmth to Peter's romantic subplot, while Tony Revolori's take on Flash Thompson reimagined the classic bully dynamic in a modern, more relatable way. Every character felt distinct and memorable, adding flavor to Peter's high school world. The music and tone also played a big role in defining the film's personality. The upbeat energy of the soundtrack, combined with the colorful visuals and lively pacing, gave the movie a sense of youthful enthusiasm. It didn't try to mimic the darker or more epic tone of other Marvel entries. It embraced the fun and chaos of teenage life. This balance between humor, emotion, and adventure made it stand out not just as a superhero film, but as a coming-of-age story with universal appeal. By the time the film reached its conclusion, Peter's growth was undeniable. offered a chance to officially join the Avengers. He surprised Tony Stark by turning it down, realizing he still had more to learn as a local hero. It was a mature decision that perfectly captured Spider-Man's spirit: humble, responsible, and grounded. The final moment when Aunt May discovered his secret identity added a perfect comedic punch to end the story on a high note. Spider-Man: Homecoming succeeded not because it reinvented the wheel, but because it understood what made the character timeless. It celebrated the balance between youth and responsibility, power and restraint, humor and heart. The film reminded audiences that even in a world filled with gods and super soldiers, a kid from Queens with a homemade suit could still inspire millions. It was a story about growing up, learning from mistakes, and standing tall in the face of challenges, both personal and heroic. As part of the wider Marvel Cinematic Universe, Homecoming marked the beginning of a trilogy that would follow Peter Parker through his evolution from eager student to self-reliant hero. But even within that larger arc, the film stood strong on its own, a fresh, funny, and heartfelt take on Spider-Man that captured everything fans loved about the character while reimagining him for a new generation. Its success paved the way for deeper, more emotional stories in the sequels, yet it remains the film that reintroduced Spider-Man to a world that had long awaited his return to the big screen in the Marvel family. Ultimately, Spider-Man: Homecoming was more than just another superhero movie. It was a celebration of youth, perseverance, and the everyday courage that defines a true hero. It showed that even with all the technology, mentorship, and larger-than-life battles, what truly makes Spider-Man special is his humanity, the heart of a kid who just wants to do what's right. That timeless message, wrapped in humor, energy, and spectacular action, ensured that Homecoming would be remembered not only as the start of a new Spider-Man era, but as one of the most joyful and heartfelt entries in modern superhero cinema.